What's going on tonight, guys? So it's been a couple of days. We had the holidays, but thankfully, here's where we are at. So this is exactly what you guys saw the last time, with the exception of a new bushing. So I did end up ordering the new bushing, and it came in quick. I ended up just changing it out. Here it is. I'm glad I did, because these didn't need to be pressed in. They just smacked in with a mallet. So anyways, that's done. Thankfully we changed it so we don't have to worry about that anymore. So really this rear end's ready to go in the car. I am super excited to show one more thing though. As many of you guys kind of noticed, I'm a Facebook Marketplace shopper. It happens to be why I have a ton of different transmissions, which we'll get to that later on. Not in this video, but later on. However, I have been scouring, and I mean scouring, for one specific piece for this car. And it was something I really wanted that I don't necessarily need, but I really, really wanted it. And finally I got it. We were able to get a tubular K-member for the car for $150. So very excited for that. Obviously we are going to be using that. So that means that the factory, all of the factory stuff, which is everything in here, will all come out. That's going to be really good for us for a lot of different reasons. Mainly, in a totally selfish point of view, now I don't have to try to finagle the transmission and the motor into the car via cherry picker. Now I can simply remove the old K-member, get the motor set correctly, bolt the transmission and everything right to the motor, slide everything right underneath the car, and be done with it. It's much easier. It solves a lot of different problems for us. It even solves things like the header issue that we were kind of thinking we were going to run into. Now it's just going to be very plug and play for us. So I'm very excited about that. That was a huge win, as well as it kind of forced me to go tubular control arms as well, which is something I wanted to do, because we have everything nice and tubular in the back. I don't really want to do tubular in the front, or I didn't really want to use the factory stuff in the front, but it was like, I'm not going to use it if I'm going to stick with the factory K-member. But now we don't need to worry about that at all. So we went with a set of BMR tubular lower control arms that actually have the ball joint in them. So my procrastination paid off on not doing the ball joints in the front control arms. So now really we just need to simply finish up by disassembling the passenger side. I'm still waiting on the motor mounts for the K-member. So there's not really a whole lot to go on there, but really removing the factory K-member can be done, as well as reinstalling the rear end and kind of getting the rest of the driver's side all pulled apart. We'll have the calipers painted probably in the next week or so. We're waiting on the paint to show up. It's a POR paint, so very excited about that because they're a great company. So that'll be front and rear calipers. I guess I'll give you guys a little sneak peek. They're going to be yellow. Something we wanted to do a little bit different on this car, so it's going to be kind of cool. So those will all be locked and loaded, ready to go, as well as we've got some other goodies, but I don't want to show you those yet because you guys are going to have to continue to tune in. So here's our plan for tonight. This is ready to be rolled underneath the car finally. So we're going to get that reset in underneath the car. I'm going to double check all the torque specifications, as well as we would ideally, at a very minimum, get the driver's side apart. In a perfect world, would be dropping that K-member. Really, it shouldn't be too many bolts, but I haven't let the bolts like sit and penetrate at all. So we can take a look to see if that's something that we can start to tackle a little bit, but we might hold off on that one just to be safe when it comes to our stuff. What we can do though is we can get all of the coilover lengths to be totally correct. That's an easy one for us to do right off the bat. And yeah, I mean really that's pretty much it. We're gonna have the suspension on this thing totally done here really pretty soon. I mean, at this point, rear end goes in the car. We did finally get all of the hardware from LMR in for the fuel tank, the fuel system, so need to pull out. I think the only thing left in that is the fuel sender. I think that's the only thing. The actual unit sender is the only thing I'm not replacing because they were really expensive for some odd reason. But beyond that, we did pick up some brake line for at least the rear line. The front lines looked okay, and they're not super difficult to change, so we might hold off on those for right now. We'll make that decision a little bit more when I start working on more of the front of the car, but I'd really like to get the back of the car wrapped up. In an ideal world, I'd almost like to put the top on pretty soon, but we were kind of waiting on a ton of different things. We were waiting on, really, it was such a pain to get the rear shocks off with the top beforehand, so I was waiting to get that done, and we've just been, again, just kind of procrastinating, getting a lot of other things that are very important done, but not everything done. So obviously not all of that's going to happen tonight, but at a minimum, I want to get the rear end put back underneath the car. I'd love to get the driver's side pulled apart because in all reality, in 2 days is trash day, so I can actually scrap all of this metal and get it out of here because we don't need it. So we are going to set up and get wrenching, and we're just going to start right in with the good stuff and roll this rear end right underneath the car and get everything all bolted up. Okay, so we have to take a break from getting things done underneath the car to start working on the shocks. Okay, so on all these Mustangs, it's a two-piece system. So it's going to be a coil that's on a dedicated spring perch. You guys already had seen that previously. So that's going to be this composition right here. Okay, so it is height adjustable. This is partially how they do the lowering, and they do it also partially on the shock itself. So me going with kind of like a cheaper coilover setup from eBay, what it ends up being is all of these shocks, I think, funny enough, are all identical. Because if I grab the factory run right here, they are all, according to what they claim, they are all, oh no, I guess they are different. Anyways, but they're a full threaded application, like what you're seeing right here. So what you are supposed to do is you're supposed to take a factory shock, okay, so there's that one right there, and you are supposed to adjust it out to be the same length. So we're going to take a quick measurement real quick. So way right here to what these need to be. So from the very tip to the eyelet, we're going to call it 22.5 inches. So the base shock itself looks like it's just, if I look at the very bottom of this piece, it is 20 inches. So that means we have to thread at least 2.5 inches on to get 22.5. Now looking in the inside of this cup right there, and actually let me turn on my little light for you guys. Okay, looking on the inside of the cup, there is threads, and then there is a vacant pocket. So looking at it, there's about 2 inches of threads. So we go about 2.5 inches, putting us right about there, and everything would be nice and kosher. So, and that would give us the factory ride height shocks. So the factory ride height shocks, to my understanding, should be totally fine to base our lowering off of. And then we can make adjustments from there, because then all you do is you simply just pop things out like such. Okay, so I'm going to spin this up a little bit. This is the lock collar. I'll show you guys this. So anytime you're working with coilovers, it's a really, really good idea to use NICs. A lot of this stuff is aluminum. There looks like there's some sort of oil or so on this already, but with that being said, I am just going to throw some on here. Basically, you want to avoid any point that can seize. That's pretty much what you're trying to get at with the NICs, is because if a coilover seizes, it's a much bigger deal, because then you have to replace a component entirely, rather than, like, because you can't really heat them up or anything like that. So let me just real quick get this set. Now, as you see, there's no more NICs on the threads, but that's okay because all of the threads in there are thoroughly coated. So right there, we're at about 22.5. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a little bit more and paint it on. I'm sorry, we're at 23. I apologize. We're at 23, so we need to go another ½ inch or so. Okay, we're going to try that. Very tip, still at exactly 23, my bad. Make sure you guys can see this. Okay, so that's all the way seated in there. So let's take a look at now what we are looking at. 22.5, okay. So, it's good to know actually. All we are going to do now is we are going to take a little bit more NICs, because now we are going to take the collar and simply spin her all the way back on. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Get a little bit of that NICs in there. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to grab the spanner wrench. So here is the spanner wrench. It looks like they include 2 of them for you. Real simple. All you're doing is simply locking it down. So a lot of people will put it in a vise, you know, for example, like this, right here. Right into the vise. And then just lock it down nice and tight because you don't want it going anywhere. That is perfect. So this one is done. I'm going to do the other one off camera, and then we're going to start talking about the springs. And they're both done. Okay, so now we can put these out of the way. Now let's talk about these. So these are going to be a little bit different. And why I say that they're going to be a little different, here's the stock spring. This is, I mean, not even kind of close. Now this is going to have a different rate, which is the biggest deal with this. So you know what, let's actually turn this on its head, because that little coil could be affecting our overall visuals here. So the whole thing, we're going to call it 14 inches, and this one is 9 3/4. So what we are going to hope for, you just take this out. We do need to do a little bit of anti-seize on this as well. We're going to actually raise this up from this setting to hopefully mitigate the crazy difference. If it is an actual true drop of those 4 inches, I think that's going to be pretty low. Obviously you can see here there's a lot to go down too. So what I am going to guess is that the rear springs are a much harsher spring, so a much higher spring rate rather than a lighter spring rate. Lighter spring rate would be like a lighter load, or like it's just meant to be more comfortable. Higher spring rate is more tense. So what I'm going to guess is with this level of adjustment and this amount of drop, that it is probably the latter. So the only other thing that we need to do is this one came with like a rubber bushing almost. So what I'm going to do is very simply take a little bit of this grease once more, and I'm actually just going to put it on directly onto the inside of this, just to hopefully avoid as much squeaking. I mean, this thing's going to squeak like crazy, I already know it. But we're just going to try to help mitigate that as much as possible. And then now that that is done, we're going to raise this back up. Okay. And with this design, unfortunately, there really isn't a good way to avoid getting anti-seize on other objects. So we're just going to be okay with it for now. Okay, so that actually rose it up to about 10 1/4. Let's turn this in. Okay, and looks like just under 10, so we're actually going to turn it out. Probably right about there. Maybe 2 more turns. That is 10 exactly. So just like last time, very last step, we're just going to take a little bit of anti-seize around this base right here. Again, hoping to avoid any issues. Now, unlike the other one, now we will have to use both spanner wrenches to actually get this to close correctly. Just like that right there. Okay. I think I'm actually going the wrong way. You just hook them the opposing ways to tighten and then give it a little snug. These I can already tell are going to be a pain to do just because of the design. Okay, yep. Only needs a little bit of light pressure. Basically needs enough pressure to not back out, just without you backing it out. And then this one is done. I'm gonna do the other one, and then you're gonna see us next back underneath the car, putting everything hopefully back together for the last time, and then we can hook up some brake lines, bend up a brake line, and get that installed, and yeah, then we'll probably transition to the front. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. So, off camera, I cleaned up a couple of things. However, with that being said, boom, there we go. A fully gutted driver's side, at least quote unquote fully gutted. Obviously, I still need to do the tie rod ends. That's really not too big of a deal. Actually, I have so much room to do them now. So I am still awaiting a couple of pieces, but if anything, we'll drop the K-member out. Right now it's soaking in penetrant too, so that actually, it's a good thing that we've got some time for that. So we'll drop the K-member out. However, the new K-member won't be going in until the motor's ready. So after this, I mean, really, we've got to run some brake line. We've got to run a brake line, actually, probably all three. Run a brake line, run some fuel lines, put the fuel system back in. But beyond that, I mean, we're cooking right along. So off camera, I did also fully pull out the coilover I had previously installed, because that was installed prior to us doing the K-member deal. And I just said, you know, I'm going to pull the spindles entirely. It's going to be a lot easier to just have those out of the way. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to buy 4 brand new ABS sensors, but oh well, that is what it is. Beyond that, we do have the rear end in. Oh my gosh, look how good it looks. And I don't even have it all situated yet. So couple of things that we still need to do with this one. I need to decide if I'm going to continue to run those Chinese bolts. They were not torquing down, which has me slightly concerned, but I'm not entirely sure. So I'm going to go look into it a little bit more. Worst case, those are easy to pull in and out. Since everything's already lined up, it's real straightforward. The rear springs sucked to do. They go in at like this weird angle. I tried screwing with it, ended up getting into a can of worms that I dealt with for probably 30 minutes until I finally took it all completely back out, put it back together in, and it looks like it sits slightly cocked. But then once some weight gets down on it, it actually does more compress a little bit more evenly. Plus the front end of the car is up, so it kind of doesn't have a good chance right now. The rear end is supported by jack stands right now, just because I want to be able to still have that level of access for working on the fuel system. We did put that brake line in that runs from the passenger side to the driver's side. Now it's kind of weird, the passenger side hose is a combination hose, so it's got 2 in, or technically it's got 1 in and 2 outs. So with that being said, I have that all at least firmly mounted as of right now. We still need to paint the calipers on that, so the calipers will come apart, and then I'm going to do at the same time the brake shield. So, but that's not really a big deal, as well as the anti-moan brackets wherever I placed those. So all of that will still be done. That's not a big deal, as well as we do still also have to fill the differential with oil, but again, that's not a big deal. I actually have the oil right there. So all of that's really not that big of a deal, at least as of right now. So things that we will be looking to do going forward, the suspension will be a separate video for the front suspension. A number of those things I might do a little bit off camera because they're not very interesting to watch. So really next up now is just slowly working on the motor. So here's the whole motor as it is right now. So this is the NPI, non-power improved motor. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to just slowly transfer wiring harnesses and brackets that I'm going to use. So for example, we'll reuse this bracket with our new throttle body that you have not seen yet. We will end up we'll end up changing over a couple of items and then just slowly work it over and then replace the heads. So thankfully it shouldn't be too big of a deal from what I am seeing to get this done. Actually, there's still some bone in there from a creature that was living in there. So the only thing that I foresee being kind of a pain, I still need to drop the oil pan because I want to do the oil pan gasket as well as the rear main seal while the motor's out of the car. And then once that's kind of all wrapped up, really we're at the point then where we are going to be taking, essentially, we're going to be reassembling the full motor. And since we've got the K-member, it'll be the full motor, it'll be the transmission. I will explain why I have so many different transmissions, finally. And once we have those 3 things together and done, so motor, transmission, K-member, it slides underneath the car with the headers on, and then it's just, you know, the 1,000,001 wrap-up details that'll probably take us weeks to get done, but you know, we're getting there. I also still need to put the rear sway bar on, but I mean, it just looks so gross. So we'll get to that. It's not really a huge deal, and then we can finally get through with the swap. I get my bench back, I get a bunch of space back, and then we could just go right into the next project. So, which at this point probably would be the Suburban. Just because the motor's already on the stand, we have the motor, we have the trans. Only thing we need to still do is rebuild the transfer case to accept the new transmission output. So, but I don't think that that's too big of a deal. I don't think. So, but that's obviously all future stuff. And then after all of that, we will finally do the Ranger 5-speed swap. I anticipate that's going to be springtime though. So, we've got a plan for all of it. Now it's just executing. That's pretty much it. So, well, thanks for joining us on this adventure. The rear end was fun to work on, a pain to work on, but still fun. So, I'm a little annoyed that I screwed up that bushing. That was a little frustrating for me. But with that being said, I mean, overall it is what it is. There's not much else I can do about it, so why cry over it? It's already been replaced. It's done. Everything's done. So, we still have some braces to put in. That'll get done. That's one of the million little things that'll get done. So thanks for joining us on this wild adventure. Like, comment, subscribe, keep following along. We're gonna get this thing totally done, and I think she's gonna be fun. So all right, I'll catch you guys next time.